Welcome to PM Express. This evening, my guest is a man who has been in Parliament since 1996 and is seeking to go back to Parliament. He is the majority leader. He is also the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, who has a lot on his plate in an election year. He has to marshal his colleagues in the House to do a lot of the work. In fact, every single work that the government plans to do that has to come to Parliament, he's a man that leads it. Tonight, he's my guest on the show. For many reasons, the primary is upon us. He himself is going to be a subject of a verdict by the delegates. Some say not so much of a contest there, but there's some controversy surrounding the primaries that I would like to explore. He's had some interesting comments about the work of the Auditor General recently, and there's some very recent controversy also that has now cropped up again, has to do with the latest work done by the Auditor General on the Getfund and the Scholarship Secretariat. We'll talk about that also. Seeing that this is an election year, it would be interesting to get his thoughts on how his own party, his government is faring, the party's chances, the work the opposition is doing as a minority holding the government accountable. A lot to talk about, always when you meet Chairman Sabunsu. I'm grateful that you could join us on PM Express tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the primaries. And you last week filed your nominations.
I did last week.
I'm pretty sure you've lost count how many times you've picked the file nomination form so you're to run in the primaries of the party.
Well, ever since I came, it's become ritualistic. Every 4 years, you have to go back and file nominations.
Except that this time is every year gets even more controversial. Is that your analysis as well?
Not really, not really. I would say that 4 years ago, in the lead up to the 2016 elections, the primaries, leading us up to the 2016 elections, was much more raucous than we witnessed recently. Don't forget, 3 people came to contest me. That was it 2015 or so? But let me make this correction. You said I've been in Parliament since 1996. No.
Okay.
1996. It was the period of the NDC when we had boycotted Parliament. I came back in 1997. Not 1996. I came to Parliament in 1997.
Oh, okay. So what I mean
January
is you contested for the first time in 1996.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
absolutely
true. Yeah. So you've been in Parliament for that particular time. The context that you're going to now, there's a lot of controversy around Chairman Sabunsu, the godfather who must be untouchable, as some have said. And so currently, the only person who dared to even want to challenge you could not pick forms, and so you have filed and you're going to be running unopposed. One private legal practitioner called John Darko, I'm sure you know him, a young man,
yeah,
could not pick forms. You definitely don't endorse that, do you?
Well, yes and no. See, the party has a constitution which allows the sluice gates to be opened every 4 years for anybody to come and pick forms, provided the person is an MPP member, is in good standing, and so on, to come and pick forms to contest. So to the extent that the party's constitution allows that, it's difficult to say that people should be prevented from picking forms. On the other hand, there's nowhere in the entrenched democracies where democracy itself is not guided or guarded in a way. In the advanced democracies in the UK, in Germany, in Italy, in Canada, in the US, in Australia, in advanced democracies, what we do here don't obtain there. It doesn't obtain there. That is, every 4 years, people coming, knocking and banging doors, I want to go to Parliament. It doesn't obtain there. And it's not so because there, a person is elected to serve Parliament. And the functions of Parliament are defined. Representative function, the legislative function, the oversight function, power of pairs, and so on. Now, to the extent that a person is able to do this and do it with some accomplishment, why do you say that at the end of 4 years the person should be removed?
Because democracy dictates so.
Democracy doesn't necessarily dictate so. It's our It's an imposition by our constitutions. And I'm saying that in the advanced democracies, what happens is that the parties in parliament assess the performance of the MPs. The leadership would assess the performance of the MPs. Where they are not measuring up, they'll be prodding them, trying to advise them to see what best they can derive from them. So people would learn from their mistakes, and then they grow up. The dictum in parliament is that, in generally speaking, the longer a person stays in parliament, the more accomplished he becomes. So if we spend so much in building the capacity of a member of parliament, at the end of 4 years, let's throw him away and bring another person to begin another capacity building exercise. What good are we doing to ourselves, to the party, to parliament, and to our democracy?
But some say if that argument should hold, then we'll never have a fluid, changing parliament based on a democracy that a constitution imposes on us, because then then you stay there forever.
Not necessarily.
Because the experience argument comes in. I mean, the guy has spent 4 years there. He's built some experience. Why do you remove him?
No. I must admit. I said, that is why I qualified my statement.
So performance-based.
That generally, the longer a person stays, the better he becomes. The more mature the person becomes. But it's not always so. I've said that there are some people who stay here and they just pass through without allowing parliament to pass through them, right? Such persons, and some people have been here 2 terms, 3 terms, some even 4 terms. And if we must be truthful to ourselves, parliament has not passed through them.
Yeah, but that's the problem of the suggestion that I've heard you make over and over again, that if it comes down to assessing people, using that as a basis to determine whether he's contested or not in the primary, you need an objective basis to do that now.
Precisely.
But we can't find that because
we can. We can.
How?
We can. If we set the benchmarks, we can. There are people who don't attend to plenary sittings. There are people who don't attend to committee meetings. You listen to people, they talk in parliament, the weight of the argument. You want people to come to plenary, there is a matter relating to policy that really the House is divided on. You want your own people to come and vote. Those people are nowhere to be seen. So he doesn't attend parliament. You ask, he's in the constituency. You check, he's not in the constituency. Right? So we can have objective benchmarks. In our particular case, we can perhaps not even limit it entirely to parliament. We let the constituency party also have a say. How often does a person come there? Our constitution, the party's constitution, not only MPP but NDCs as well, provide for the secretaries manning the various constituencies to be emulated. You must provide some emolument for that person. Usually he's a member of parliament. Usually he's a member of parliament who rents an office. Are they doing these things? How often do they join the party to maybe attend events, including maybe festivals and so on, to upscale the performance or the image of the party? So you allow the constituency party. How often does he come to have meetings with you? All these things, there will be dates will be provided. So if the person is doing very well in the constituency, and maybe he's doing very well in parliament, at the constituency he's not doing these things. Perhaps he's gotten himself involved in some chieftaincy dispute and bringing the image of the party down. These are objective measuring, assessment tools.
Who's going to do that assessment? The party?
I'm saying that if we agreed, the constituency party, and we're not going to wait until 4 years. Maybe it be some quarterly reports, some half-yearly reports, so that after 4 years, when you have said that the member of parliament has attended these programs, and after 4 years we come and tell the party that, we don't see him, those things will be brought to bear. And the parliament one, if there's a congruence that, he's doing fantastic in parliament, in the constituency he's doing so well, Why do you remove such a person? But I will tell you something. People talk about democratic credentials, and I've told you that elsewhere in the advanced democracies, the parties do these assessments to see to the continuation of members of parliament or otherwise. Somebody is doing fantastic in parliament. Perhaps he's such an alcoholic that one evening or many evenings he's been seen over drinking, and perhaps on one occasion he was caught pants down. He was so drunk that he couldn't even go to drive himself back to the house, and he slept in his vehicle and was captured by the usual paparazzi. These things certainly will bring down the image of the party and the esteem of the member of parliament, right? Maybe if he does it once, you try to maybe advise him to put the person up. But if he doesn't listen to good counsel, then this could be maybe a factor to indicate to the constituency that can you bring another person. But I'll tell you something. Because people overly hinge their discourse on the constitution. The constitution says that the internal organization of political parties shall conform to democratic,
which is a fact.
Which is a fact. But let's look at the constitution, because they are usually talking about Article 55 of the constitution. Article 55 is spot on when it says that the 55.3, 55.5, and I quote, the internal organization of a political party shall conform to democratic principles, and its actions and purposes shall not contravene or be inconsistent with this constitution or any other law. So because of this, people say that, well, at every twist and turn, there should be elections. I disagree. Because the same...
Disagree with the constitution?
No, with the interpretation. Because...
It's black and white.
It is not.
It is.
Let's go on. So that, where is election mentioned in this?
Internal democratic.
Yes. Democracy necessarily means elections.
Well,
not necessarily.
It means allowing the people
Not
to
necessarily.
decide.
Yes. Allowing the people to decide doesn't necessarily mean that it should be at every turn by elections.
Well, there's a majority rule. That's
Precisely. For instance, in Parliament, when a question is put, do we just say that at every question there should be voting? That is voting by counting people.
No.
Sometimes we say that as many as are in agreement say aye.
Yeah, but allow that voice.
Precisely. So it's a voice vote, not head count.
But there's a majority voice.
Precisely. So I'm saying that we can have this arrangement. It doesn't necessarily mean that at every twist and turn there should be elections.
No, but the only
can I
manifestation of majority in your case
yes.
will be having the majority of your delegates make that decision.
It could be by popular acclamation, not necessarily by election.
But popular acclamation meaning that nobody else puts themselves out.
No. Maybe 3-4 people, and then the person with the loudest voice, not necessarily counting delegates and so on. Let me read the same article 55, which is subjecting the internal organization of a political party to democratic principles. The same article 55. Now let's go to 9. 9 says, the members of the National Executive Committee of a political party shall be chosen from all the regions of Ghana.
So chosen is the operative word, I guess you're going
to The operative word is chosen, right? So not necessarily by election. But of course we have, put this gavel on our head that necessarily must be by election. Now what we do, the MPP, what we do, what the NDC does, how is it able to achieve this? We go for election. And by that, how are we able to really conform to Article 55.9? And Article 55.9 is put there for a purpose. Remember, in the immediate pre-independence and post-independence era, political parties, after the NDC, the CPP had won, political parties had emerged. As post-1954, we had the NLM, the National Liberation Movement, which was just in the cocoa growing areas in the country, right? Because that was led by Bafo Akoto, the current Minister for Education, Dr. Usefria Koto's father, big-time cocoa farmer, Kwame Nkrumah at the time had told them that he was going to guarantee the purchase price of cocoa when he won. Then Nkrumah realized that he needed some funding to develop the country, and cocoa money easily came to mind that he could tax cocoa and use it for development. But then in the lead up to the independence, he had said this to them, that he was going to guarantee stable prices were paid. And because they thought that he had defaulted, the cocoa farmers ganged up together and then formed the NLM to protect their interests. Cocoa doesn't grow in the north. So it was the NLM was Ashanti, Bravo, and to some extent some portions of Eastern region at the time. Then we had the NPP, the Northern People's Party. It was just based in the north to serve the interests of the people of the north. We had the Trans-Volta Togoland People's Party, led by S.G. Anto and Amato. In Greater Accra here, we had Ganshi Frimukwe, right? So they were all regional-based parties. And Nkrumah and the CPP at the time, the parliament at the time, decided that those political parties that were regional-based, if you like, some of them to some measure ethnic-based, should not be allowed to flourish. So this came to be put in the constitution. And the outcome of that was the merge, or the mergence of all those regional-based parties into the United Party, the UP. Which to me, even if the motive was not good, it served a useful purpose. So now, to discourage that system, every political party should have its executive chosen from all the regions. So from Eastern region, from Ashanti, from Bron, from North, Upper East, Upper West, Volta region, you should have all of them in the executive of the political party, such that that political party can have a national character. But these elections that we do, has it able to achieve this? We are an obvious breach of this. The point I'm making is that election is not the only way of selecting or choosing people, even though it's one of them. You've
been selling this argument for a while. The party hasn't bought it yet, has it?
I believe that as we go along, they will buy. My ministry, the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, together with NCC, mounted some platform to educate the political parties and draw their attention on this. And when we met, Sidney Ketia raised this issue about the injunction placed on us by Article 55(5). Apparently, he had not looked at 55(9). When I read it out to him, he was shell-shocked. I said, no, in that case, we must look at our affairs again. We must do serious introspection. To me, that's a useful thing. My own party, we've had this discussion for quite a while. And I remember President Kufuor, he disagreed with me. He thought that we should be bound by the outcomes of elections. But after Nana Addo's victory, the first delegates conference held in Cape Coast, I reiterated the point. And President Kufuor, usually at such conferences, he speaks after I have spoken as the leader of the party in Parliament. For the first time, he agreed with me and said, no, I've been saying these things for a while. Reclining, he thinks that we should interrogate this. And he thinks that what we do at the polling stations, the elections that we do at the polling stations, at the electoral areas, at the constituency, even at the region, we shouldn't be doing it. So, but he said the national elections, we should do it. That is the election for the national executive. To me, it was a monumental shift. And I think that we can build on it.
So in April, when this primary comes up, you're going to go on the post, definitely. I mean, so you did to guarantee them 4 more years. Because of Swame, it's a safe seat for the party. But other areas have not had the same sort of harmony in terms of the process going into the filing. And even now the verdict. There have been clashes in Ashanti Mampon. And there have been many grievances. I mean, we haven't had anybody threatening that it's going to sue the party yet or take the party on yet. for you, looking at the process so far and the timing of it, right? In April, we have months on election. Was it the right time to do this? Shouldn't have it come earlier? Because you have to mend the party post the primary. There have been a lot of aggrieved hearts.
Yes.
Post the primary.
I appreciate the issue that you're raising. And as an individual, I had suggested that these primaries ought to have held last year. In fact, I proposed that it should hold after the second meeting of Parliament, that is post-July 2019, so that we could hold it August, September, first 2 weeks October, when Parliament will be resuming. I thought that space was good enough for us to hold the primaries. The majority of the people did not agree with me, and the reason was also plausible. People felt that if we did it at the time, and some members lost,
their contribution to the work of the House might simply
the budget. The budget meeting was the next, and maybe those people who suffered that fate, unfortunately, would not. Perhaps they will abandon the House.
Government business might suffer.
And government business might suffer. I disagreed. And the reason was that what I suggested was that, you see, even though we want, my principle is to retain as many as possible. If people lost, their kingdom would have come to an end. And only one person will have some authority to reposition them. And that person is the president.
True.
The president, in the kingdom of the president, there are several mansions.
Absolutely.
And he could tell them that, oh, okay, unfortunate this situation that you have lost, but can you come along? If by God's grace I win again, I can reposition you here. And the president has a track record of doing this. In the 2016, those of them who lost, there are some of them that is appointed as deputy ministers, some of them as substantive ministers.
So he kept his word to them?
Some of them ambassadors, CEOs, and he kept his word. So I thought that with that track record, if we did it at the time, he could salvage the cause of those people. Unfortunately, as I said, those people who felt that the budget might suffer, government business might suffer at the time, won the day. And of course, we are Democrats.
Yeah.
You must conform to what the majority say.
What kind of government can the party recover in time?
That was my worry. That was my worry at the time. But of course, we are here. We are faced with reality, and I think that we must do the best. It's the reason why the issue that related to the party, then through the various regional organizations, wanted to see how to manage the process by talking to some of the aspirants who had come banging on doors to hold their horses and let the MPs. We thought that the IPU, there's a body that is called IPU, Inter-Parliamentary Union. They has given an indication to the various parliaments which belong to the IPU to have at least a third of their membership as women. In fact, originally, it was 2015. They shifted to 2020. Now they're saying that parliaments that don't conform will have their voting rights withdrawn. So that's something that we must contend with. So the party then decided that, okay, we're not there yet. We are not into the 30% bracket, but where we are in the region of about 13% or so, can we then allow those of them, to the extent that the women have not gotten themselves involved in any infractions, can we allow the women to continue to begin with? And then the very experienced ones who really are contributing to hold the party in parliament, could we allow them to continue? They were using their own kind of systems to hold the party and manage the system. That is why in some places, they held on to the forms, doing the management behind the curtains. But every now and then people will burst out to say that we don't agree, we want to contest, and sometimes it becomes difficult. So there are practical difficulties, and it's all because in the Constitution now, there are these clear provisions that there should be elections. So it is why we are where we are. Not the best of situations, but I'm counting on the party to be able to manage and do the best out of it.
We're going to take a break. When we return, we'll talk about the Auditor General. Stay with us. You're still live on PM Express. My guest is still Che Mensah Bonsu, who is the Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. Mr. Mensah Bonsu, the Auditor General has released another audit, this time of the Getfund and the Scholarship Secretariat. It found that many of your colleagues and PP members of Parliament had either had abused or conspired with the Getfund to abuse the scholarship scheme. Many of them. Your education minister, a good friend of yours, Matthew Poku-Prempeh, had been named. Your own deputy majority leader, Adjasafo, had been named. Deputy Agriculture Minister was also named in there. Ignatius Bafwewa had also been named in there. He's employment minister. All of them took scholarships from the Getfund, funds meant for needy students. They definitely, by no stretch of definition, qualify as needy. This is gross abuse of state resources by politicians who are already wealthy. What's your reaction to the findings?
First of all, I disagree with the modus of the Auditor General. The Auditor General everywhere is a tool for Parliament in the performance of its oversight functions. It's the reason why the Constitution imposes some injunction on the Auditor General to, once he finishes with his report, after interrogating the public accounts of the country, to submit that report to Parliament.
They say they have.
And if they have submitted a report, it's for Parliament to interrogate the reports. Parliament hasn't done so yet. And then you go out and leak the report to the press.
It wasn't leaked, it was on its website.
It's not right.
Based on what law? It's
based on the Constitution.
It's illegal.
Based on the Constitution. The Constitution provides in Article 187 that there shall be an Auditor General of Ghana whose office shall be a public office. And then the 2 says the public accounts of Ghana and of all public offices, including the courts, the central and local government administrations of the universities and public institutions of like nature, of any public corporation or other body or organization established by an act of Parliament, shall be audited and reported on by the Auditor General. And reported on by the Auditor General. That is Article 187(2). Now you come to 187(5). It provides, the Auditor General shall, within 6 months after the end of the immediately preceding financial year to which each of the accounts mentioned in Clause 2 of this article relates, submit his report to Parliament, and shall, in that report, draw attention to any irregularities in the accounts audited and to any other matter which, in his opinion, ought to be brought to the notice of Parliament. Then 6 says, Parliament shall debate the report of the Auditor General and appoint, where necessary, in the public interest, a committee to deal with any matters arising from it. So the Auditor General, anywhere else in the world, is a tool for Parliament in the performance of Parliament's oversight responsibilities. Now, the difficulty regarding what the Auditor General is doing now is that, you see, we have many accounts that come to Parliament. The Auditor General himself is not personally responsible for auditing the accounts of these institutions mentioned in Clause 2 of Article 187. But the audit service persons, the staff, do some of them. But most of it, he contracts to private auditors, chartered accountants and so on, to do this. When they have done so and have perused the report, he would append his signature. But because there are so many volumes, it's difficult for him to really look at every word, every sentence, even though he appends his signature. Let's face it, because there are huge volumes of these documents. And so, every now and then, there are reports that come, and he would have drawn the attention of the Public Accounts Committee to some of these things that, can you look at this place, can you look at this place? And they go to interrogate them. In the course of the interrogations, many times, the Public Accounts Committee stumbles on some infractions in the performance of their own functions. And don't forget, when they are interrogating the reports, they will bring staff of the audit service to be with them. And many times, they have seen that there's been some defects in these reports. And then together, they would invite those people concerned, the people mentioned in the report, and then they will listen to them. When clearly those people have infringed the law, they are brought to book. But in not a few cases, many cases, people are wrongly cited. And then you have a way then to deal with the matter. Now, you have mentioned a name.
Plenty names.
Plenty names. And then in this regard. And then the people, eventually when the Public Accounts Committee comes to interrogate the report, it's found out that, well, your own work was inconclusive. So you couldn't have said so about those people. What happens? We have tarnished their names and rubbished them.
But Mr. Jameson, was
no, I'm just developing the point. I'm just developing the point. And then every now and then, because of what he's been doing now, the Public Accounts Committee becomes hamstrung, right? Because immediately a person's name is cited, let's say wrongfully cited, the person then decides to go to court to redeem his image. To the extent that the person is in court, the Public Accounts Committee cannot deal with the report.
No, so shall it be then?
No, because...
But the Public Accounts Committee has admitted failure over the years that what they do hasn't amounted to much.
Yes.
So if because to go to
no.
Which is where it eventually will end.
No. I'm saying that they are denying Parliament from further interrogating the matter.
That's not true, Mr. Jameson.
No, the moment that is true, because if this leakage, on account of that, a person decides to go to court, while the case is pending in court, Public Accounts Committee cannot investigate the matter.
That's not what the President in Parliament says. There's a ruling by the Speaker, that I'm sure you recall, that Speaker says that the fact that the court is holding this matter doesn't mean that...
Does not necessarily mean... does not necessarily mean...
Yes. The
said
predecessor to this current Speaker who made the ruling, I remember, very controversial matter.
Yes.
And it still says we could go ahead and do it.
This current Speaker has also made some remarks. And he says that because a matter is in court, does not necessarily mean, he said does not necessarily mean, and I agree with him, does not necessarily mean that Parliament should be stopped from dealing with the matter. If the matter, Parliament's own interrogation, would not go against the grain of the matter before the court, such that it may
go on and do his work.
That's the point I'm making. Now, we are not really firmly grounded on that matter. Maybe, and I was urging the current Speaker, that maybe he must come out with his own ruling, because a Speaker may give a directive which may not be a ruling. The ruling will firm that decision, that if it's before Parliament, insofar as it relates to public accounts and it's gone to court, we can...
But I want to return to the law you quoted about the reporting to Parliament.
Yes.
It says what the Auditor General should do.
Yes.
It never barred him from putting that information out there in the public domain, which is what he does by publishing it on the website. He hasn't done anything illegal.
The president appoints a commission of inquiry.
Yeah.
A commission of inquiry is appointed. You submit the report back to the president. Isn't it the case?
Yes.
Can you imagine a situation when the commission of inquiry then decides to publish its own report?
But that is a different scenario, isn't it?
It is not.
No, when you're dealing with Parliament, you're dealing with the people's representatives. different one.
Precisely. I mean, why do you think that? Why do you think that it should not obtain here?
No, but Parliament in this case, which is read, it says report back to Parliament.
Yes, and Parliament
he's
then
fulfilled that. He's fulfilled that.
Yes,
he's done so. Nothing in this law bars him from, once he's fulfilled this particular clause, putting the report out. You would say
in the same manner that if a commission of inquiry is established by the president, once they finish and report to Parliament, to the president, they can also go and publish their report.
Except that,
what's the exception that they provided?
In that particular scenario,
yes,
there is a white paper that we expect. The process isn't complete.
Oh, good. That's the same thing. The process is not complete. That is why 6 says.
I mean, even in the
that case, is why 6 says that Parliament shall debate the report and of the Auditor General and appoint where necessary in the public interest a committee to deal with any matters arising from it. What the Public Accounts Committee themselves, and indeed Parliament, has failed to do thus far is the appointment of this committee.
I thought PAC is the committee.
Come again?
The PAC.
No.
The committee that's with it.
No. After it says Parliament shall debate the report of the Auditor General. PAC, the Public Accounts, further interrogates the report and they submit a report to Parliament. That report is what is debated in plenary. And when we have done so, those of them that we think would need further sanctions, however it should be done, that should be reported, that should be handed over to that committee. That committee is what we have been struggling since 1993 to form. Indeed, when Kandapa became the chairman of Public Accounts Committee, he first raised this in Parliament that we haven't done this, that we need to do this. And there was that attempt to do that. And we needed to consult the judiciary because the law provides that we should have somebody from the judiciary come to serve on that committee. The difficulty was whether you should have a 7 justice of the Superior Court to be there or retired. And we haggled a bit on this, quite a lot on this, between Parliament and the then Chief Justice, Chief Justice, Lordship JoyNews Wood. And we never came to any conclusion on that. So that matter is still hanging.
So you believe that the Auditor General has breached?
In fact, I have invited him, together with, he's been here on 2 occasions. We have had some discussion on this. And together with the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. In fact, in many jurisdictions, the Auditor General is referred to as Parliament's auditor. In many jurisdictions. As the reason that I'm proffering, that he's supposed to report to Parliament. He's supposed to respond to Parliament. Unfortunately, I think by the crafting of our own constitution, there are a lot of deficiencies. Why? Because, you see, if you look at the Constitution, whereas 7 says that in the performance of his functions under this Constitution or any other law, the Auditor General shall not be subject to any direction or control by any person or authority. So and so. And then when we come to 8 says that, notwithstanding paragraph A of clause 7, that is not being subject to any power or authority, including Parliament and the President, because the executive is what Parliament oversees anyway, and the man is our tool, the audit service is our tool to perform this function. Then in our Constitution, we have 1878 saying that paragraph A of clause 7 of this article shall not preclude the President, not Parliament, the President acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State from requesting the Auditor General in the public interest to audit at any particular time the accounts of any such body or organization as is referred to in clause 2 of this article. So it is the President that Parliament is supposed to oversee who has been granted this exemption to cause the Auditor General to further audit some institutions and so on. Parliament has not even been given that power. In other constitutions, it's Parliament.
Now, let me ask you then, if you believe that the way he goes about the publication of the reports is a violation of the Constitution, what do you do about it? What have you done about it? What do you plan to do about it?
That's why I've said that by perceiving that, I thought we should have some dialogue with him
But you have.
I and the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, the Honorable Aveji, we invited him here on 2 occasions. He agrees with us in principle, but says that, well, but there's another law that I think the PNDC law that allows him to do that, to even publish it once he submits the report to Parliament, that he can publish it, right? But you know that the Constitution provides.
You think it's inconsistent with the Constitution?
That, yes, I believe it's inconsistent.
Okay.
And he said to us that in that regard, we should cause that law to be repealed.
To be amended.
To be amended. Other than that,
it comes back to the question, so what do you do about it? You cannot just complain that he's breaching the law without
that is why we had this dialogue with him.
Which hasn't
worked.
So what next?
I don't know. Maybe as a house we should do. You remember, I have been doing this behind the curtain, and I've spoken to it on some platforms. But a media house came and interviewed me on this, and I spoke to it. And I think after they aired it, the heavens about collapse. Why? Because the airing of that interview apparently had coincided with what he had held against Afmafo. And people thought that I was coming in to defend Afmafo. So it was hell breaking loose. James Abosu is defending Afmafo. It had nothing to do with that. I was speaking to the Constitution. And I thought that those people who disagreed with me did not even apply themselves to the Constitution. They just took it at face value that, he has entered this fray because he wants to defend the Honorable Afmafo. But it has nothing to do with that.
I want us to deal with the substance of what he found, though, when it comes to your colleagues. What he found is that, I know you have qualms with the processes of the way this has been published, but we've dealt with that. Let's deal with the substance. He found that members of your party in Parliament, your own deputy and others, good friend of yours, Matubuku Prempe, had benefited from Getfund scholarship meant for the needy. Can you justify that?
The colleagues, I've not spoken to them. I don't know when. If it is true, when.
Matubuku Prempe spoke yesterday.
That he's not done that.
He says he actually got the scholarship, but it was in 2014 to Harvard.
Okay. The Harvard opportunity was open to me. I did not assess it.
Yeah.
I did not assess it.
But was it right for him as a member of Parliament?
He must respond to it himself, with respect.
Your deputy, also, Adra Safo, also yesterday issued a statement that she also got the same, but it was. I
know they've been there on a couple of occasions. Once you start, I think you build on it for 3 successive terms or something. So they've been there. Adra has been there. As to how she was sponsored, I don't know.
General question: should MPs even ever benefit from Getfund scholarship?
People think that MPs are well endowed. I would suggest to you that it's not like that at all.
But they are not needy. Under the laws that govern the Getfund.
What is needy?
It's needy is needy. Your constituents who.
No, what is needy?
Who you fund with your.
If somebody wants to continue his education, right, at a particular time, he or she cannot provide the funding himself for that enterprise.
Member of Parliament.
No, I'm saying. Yes, member of Parliament. You think that if maybe the person has to pay about $10,000 for one term, the member of Parliament can afford that?
Should be able to afford that.
You don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, you don't know what you're talking about. You are one of those people who think that the MPs are very well resourced.
No, but there's opportunity cost. That $10,000 to the MP means $10,000 less for somebody in his constituency who really, really needs that money.
Well, that's why I asked the question. What is needy? Right? If at any given time you need something and you don't have it, you can be classified as needy. I have not assessed it for myself, not for any kid of mine, any child of mine. I have not. I remember one time, I don't have I've assessed it, I must honestly say so. But I'd gone to church. My pastor, after we finished, came to me and brought a certain lady to me that somebody brought her told him he had been admitted to a medical institution in the US, and they had asked her to pay some amount. And I think she had just about a week left for the closure. The parents didn't have anything. So the pastor told me, I said, well, it's almost too late, but let me go and try if she's able to have it. I did, and by God's grace, they looked at her credentials and they said, well, they had about they said they had 3 slots left. They could offer her 1, and she benefited. So then we had to hurriedly do some.
This story makes my point.
Yes.
3 slots.
Yes.
It means that those other slots had been taken, possibly by members of parliament who had applied. It comes back to the question: if you went and it was 0 slots,
yes,
that meant that needy person you were intervening for,
yes,
wouldn't have had the scholar because a member of parliament had taken the particular slot. That is immoral in the least, even if it's not illegal.
Well, as I'm saying, I don't know the circumstances under which they applied.
But they got it.
They got it. Yes, I'm saying that.
I'm asking a general question. Should there be any circumstance where a member of parliament should benefit from a state scholarship that is defined in the law as for the needy?
It's if at that critical point, the member can be classified as needy. At that critical point.
Can that ever happen, that a member of parliament can be classified as needy?
Why not? That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that you seem to think that the members of parliament are sufficiently endowed that they are never needy.
If they're in parliament and you want to go to school,
yes,
I put it to you, you must fund your own education. You cannot rely on the state to fund your education.
Yes, I know some ministers of state. They were ministers of state, and they were attending school. Perhaps we'll wait for the Auditor General to come out with their own inquest, the interrogation.
As to how they're funding it?
As to how those ministers funded themselves, funded their education.
Will you ever, even if you had to go to school, Harvard has invited you, Yale, Ivy League, would you apply to Getfund for funding?
Well, I consider myself as being at the dusk of my terrestrial living. So I think assessing it, I don't consider it worthy.
That is my point.
No, I don't consider it worthy.
If you won't do it
today, no. I'm saying
Parliament should.
No, because as I sit here with you, this year I turned 63. Right. If I acquire some other knowledge, right, of what profit is it going to yield me? Of course, maybe when you step out of parliament, you'll be able to maybe nourish some people. But I think that the experience that I've had here, elsewhere, you see what is here.
That is the APNAC Champion Against Corruption Award.
Yes. It was given to me by the Kenyan Parliament. I went there and gave some lecture, altogether 3-hour lecture, 1.5 hours, then another 1.5 hours. It had to do with anti-corruption, how parliaments should be well positioned to fight corruption. And that is the award he gave me thereafter. So I think that by the experience that I've had, the knowledge that I've garnered in parliament, and also where I've gone to outside Ghana's parliament, various fora that I've associated with, I have sufficient that I should allow space for others who are much younger than me to benefit. Which is why I have not assessed the facility. So, but if you have a 40-year-old coming up, a 35-year-old member of parliament coming up, sometimes we have
to go to school.
Yes,
but
sometimes
not at the expense of the taxpayer.
Well, what are you saying about that? In the university, our universities are subvented.
Yeah, but
no, it's taxpayers' money.
No, but
so you think that they should not attend public universities?
That's not the point. The point is about taking from a scholarship meant
because your emphasis is on taxpayers' money. And I'm saying that our universities...
But that's not the same. That subvention is meant for every Ghanaian who qualifies to go to university.
So the taxpayers' qualification should be taken out then.
No, but it's important
the taxpayers' qualification should be taken out because the public institutions are also subvented by taxpayers.
But not a fund set aside.
Anyway,
purposely for everybody
I have
else.
said that I have not assessed it.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for all of them.
But you defend, you're not condemning the fact that the members of parliament...
You seem to think that they are not needy.
But you say they are.
I'm saying that they are because you seem to think that the remuneration of the member of parliament should be sufficient to cater for him.
But does that justify? I get the point.
And I'm saying that it's not
justify you relying on
I have said that I don't, and I don't know the condition.
Okay.
They
so
were
it doesn't justify.
the condition they were in before they applied, and not knowing, I would not, jump into the fray to condemn them.
Okay. Chairman Subonsu is still my guest. We'll take a quick break. We'll return. We'll get him to wrap up on an election year, which is proving to be very exciting already as we approach December 7th. What are the chances of his own party, his own president, our president, and the man seeking re-election? John Dramani Mahama is lurking the shadows. He's not named his running mate yet, but some say he poses a significant grave threat to the NPP's chances. Does he believe the hype? Stay with us. Still on PM Express, my guest is Sir Chairman Sabonsu. He's a majority leader. Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, we have a few months on election. How quickly time flies, I guess, when you're having fun as a politician, and then elections beckon. You are safe again in Parliament for 4 years, no doubt about that. But your president doesn't appear to be that safe because he has to go back to the people and ask for a renewal of his mandate. What is your own assessment of the chances? I am expecting an answer that says he is going to sail, but others will say that it's not going to be as easy as it was in 2016. You agree?
Well, I believe deep down my heart that the president is going to scale over this hurdle. But I must admit that the NPP should not be complacent because politics is a game. If you don't prepare adequately, you could be unsettled. In the 2000 elections, I believe the NDC never thought that MPP was ever going to upstage them, and yet we did. In 2008, NPP never thought that we're going to be upstaged, and we upstaged. Yeah. In 2016, President Mahama was having his first fully fleshed term, and he never, ever dreamt that we're going to upstage him, and we did. Sometimes complacency sets in.
Is there complacency?
But I think that we should learn from experience, and the president himself is not complacent.
But are the people around him complacent? Have you seen any signs of complacency?
Well, not really, but
not really is a very not sure answer. You're seeing something.
No,
you're
but
seeing something there.
I want people to be much more rigorous.
So you're not seeing the rigor?
Yes, I'm not seeing
the hunger,
rigor,
the passion, the thirst,
in some
the aggression
in of our colleagues. But maybe it's because the primaries are also lurking. Okay. I believe after the primaries we see the real MPP. But I think that we must be much more proactive than we have been up to now. Because let's not forget, this is the first time we're having a former president contest.
True.
Right? And whatever you want to do, I mean, he knows the tricks. Yeah. He knows the nooks and crannies. So he can always be talking to issues. I want this election, because we have somebody who has been there before. I want the election to be issues-based. To me, it will advance our democracy. It will advance President Mahama's own democratic credentials. But if you go assailing the character of individuals, it doesn't help you. Initially, that was what was emerging. He was attacking the person of Ekufo-Addo, which I thought was bad.
He did the same too, in equal measure.
Your
party did the same.
Attacking John Mahama. I disagree with him.
Yeah. But no, you haven't.
Yes, but I respond to issues, yes, right? his own commissions. I'm talking about, when I talk about his own commissions, I'm talking about the commissions of his government.
Yes.
Right? Our attack issues without attacking the person. So let's confine ourselves.
So that's why we want to see this here. I'm grateful that you could join us, Mr. Chieme Sabonsu, and all the best, not in the primaries, because that is safe, but in the general elections.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your best wishes.
Thank you.
May your wishes come true, as always.
It will. I mean, it's Swami. I mean, that, you don't need a political scientist to do a poll to tell you that Swami is safe for him. But that's Chieme Sabonsu. Always exciting to talk to him. I'm pretty sure down the line we'll talk to him again as the campaign cranks up and we approach to December 7th, because then he will be facing a contest from the NDC. I mean, the question is, it's not whether he wins, is by what margin. And people are going to be looking at, is he dropping votes over time? Those are key things that I guess political watchers pay attention to.
I'm increasing votes.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.